Hi everyone, today we are looking at flexible thinking. Now, this whole program has been about helping us move from rigid, dogmatic ways of thinking to more flexible thinking that allows us to go with the flow. So today we're going to be looking at some more detail in what flexible thinking is and how you can apply it to your life. So let's get cracking. We've already looked throughout this series about rigid thinking. What is rigid thinking? Rigid thinking is firstly absolute. We are absolutely sure of it. We're 100% certain that we are right, that our opinion is correct. That is rigid thinking. We're not open to other people's perspectives. We're not open to other ways of us looking at it. We're certain this is how it is. That is what we call rigid thinking, absolute thinking, dogmatic thinking. We're kind of stuck in our perception. And if you look historically at the times where you've been struggling emotionally, whatever emotion that is, generally speaking, there is a fixed way of looking at something. And this whole process has been about helping you to shift from that rigid approach, that rigid way of looking at it, to introducing questions so that you can help to have a different perspective, see things in a different way. And we've looked at a lot of different thought forms. For example, labeling. And when we label ourselves, you can see that that's quite rigid. When we judge ourselves and we have a certain opinion about ourselves, then you could say that is a rigid thought. If we think we're absolutely sure that something is a disaster, that it's a catastrophe, this is how it is. And in that moment when we're feeling that way, yes, we say this is true. And all the different thought forms that we've covered, they all have this rigid viewpoint, this attachment to the thought, this attachment to this idea that we're right. As you begin questioning your thoughts, and we've been looking at empirical ways of questioning your thoughts, is this true? Practical ways of questioning, is this helpful? As you begin looking at the evidence, you begin to see, like there's that moment of insight, that moment of perspective or awareness where you might not be 100% true, where things might not be how you thought they were. And that's what we're doing in CBT, is we're helping you to see that what you believe isn't necessarily 100% true. There might be a partial truth, but your view, your opinion as you thought it was, isn't totally true. So what starts to happen is a softening of your beliefs. What do I mean by softening? You stop holding onto them so tightly. You stop thinking that you are 100% right. Maybe you stop believing those thoughts so strongly. It's a bit like if you're driving a car, if you're really holding on tight to the steering wheel, you might be quite afraid or stressed, as opposed to just gently holding onto that steering wheel. The ride becomes more enjoyable. And when we are attached to our rigid thoughts, we are really holding on tight. And as we begin to question, we begin to have a more relaxed experience with our thoughts. And slowly what starts to happen is we become more flexible. We become more flexible in our opinions. We become more flexible in how we see reality. So what are flexible beliefs exactly? Well, the first thing about flexible beliefs is they are consistent with reality. Reality is always changing. It's organic. Like every day is a new day. No man or woman walks in the same river twice. It might look the same, but that river's different each day. Same is true for you. Like life is always changing, it is always flowing, it is always evolving. And our rigid thoughts are the opposite to that. Our rigid thoughts are not consistent with reality all the time. Our flexible beliefs allow for the changing currents of reality. They allow for the different nuances. They allow for more details. They're more complex, more nuanced, and they allow for you to go with the flow more often. Flexible beliefs don't create more negative emotions. Life is difficult enough as it is. Without having to have rigid thoughts about it, stuff happens, bad things happen. But the problem is with our rigid thoughts, we hold on to them for days, weeks, months, or years. And sometimes there are things in the future that we're worried about, but when we have rigid thoughts about them, we're worrying about them before they even happen. So when you start to have flexible thinking, it allows you to have more peace, more enjoyment, and to go with the flow. Hello, to go with the flow and enjoy life more often. So how do we get to those flexible beliefs? Well, you've already been doing it along this journey. You've already worked out what your rigid beliefs are, and when you question them and you realize they're not 100% true, if they're not true, then a flexible belief is working out, well, what is closer to truth? What is closer to reality? And each of the different thought forms, they have their own type of flexible thought. So let me give you a few examples. We've already looked at those rigid shoulds, musts, have tos, ought tos, and we can see now that they are super rigid. So if you have the belief that my partner should listen to me, that is a rigid belief. It's like, this is how it should be, and that's the end of it. Now in life, as you probably already know, there is no should. It doesn't exist in reality. We have what we want, what we would like, but there's no should. So maybe a flexible alternative to my partner should listen to me is, I would like them to listen to me. Yeah, that's true. But they don't have to. That's also true. They don't have to. I would like them to listen to me, but they don't have to listen to me. You see, that is more flexible. You are allowing the opportunity for them to listen to you, but they don't have to listen. And that's true. That's closer to the truth. So when you find yourself in situations, that belief is more flexible, and any kind of should or ought to or have to kind of belief is going to have the same similar structure. The truth of the matter is, the things that we are afraid of sometimes are going to happen. Maybe you've got a demand. I must avoid getting rejected at all costs. I must avoid getting my heart broken at all costs. That's something I would like to avoid, but sometimes the truth is it's going to happen. That's reality. So you might as well allow that into your belief system. You'd really like not to get rejected, but sometimes it might happen. Can you see that as more flexible? That allows for more opportunity, more peace, more freedom. Sometimes bad things happen, and sometimes really bad things happen. A real disaster can happen. We're not saying it doesn't, but sometimes it's not a disaster. And the truth, the nuance is, yeah, look, it is a bad thing, but it's not as bad as I think it is. You see, it's more consistent with reality. Yes, it's bad. We're not saying it's not, but also we're not saying it's as bad as you think it is. We're allowing yourself to be more flexible, more nuanced. Let's look at self-labeling. I might label myself, I'm a failure. Can you see how rigid that is? How judgmental that is? How we're so sure about us being a failure. Whereas a flexible alternative might be, hey, I might have failed at that task. I might have failed at that thing. I might not have got the result that I wanted to, but that doesn't mean that I'm a total failure, right? Very different. Again, you're allowing for the nuance of life to go with the flow. Maybe you've got a rigid all or nothing thinking. Maybe you're saying, if I don't get that job, then there's no point in trying. Can you see how judgmental and prescriptive that is? And is that really true? What evidence have you got to prove that? There is no evidence. What's the truth? If I don't get that job, it's going to be difficult, but there's no reason why I can't try again. So what you're starting to find as you begin to question your beliefs, get more evidence, get more details as to the real truth, those flexible beliefs are just going to pop out. They're just going to come out. You're going to see them. And the flexible beliefs are beliefs that are more consistent with reality. That's it, guys. It takes practice, but the answers you get from questioning your rigid beliefs are going to be your flexible alternatives. Flexible alternatives, they're going to feel good. They're going to be more consistent with reality. You're going to know they're true because when you investigate them and you say, hey, look, is this true? Is this helpful? The answer is going to be yes. This is more helpful. Yes. This is more flexible. Yes. This is more consistent with reality. Okay, that's all for today. Got any questions, put them underneath the video. And if you haven't checked out my other videos, check them out. There's going to be a lot more on this topic and other stuff in the next few weeks. So I'll catch you later.